Welcome to Picks and Bans Week 4, where the question on everyone's minds as we move into 11.4 is what will happen with the jungle and will Viego get played this week? My answer to the Viego question is probably yes, but it's hard to tell which role. He's not rated very highly in the jungle in solo queue. Top lane not as much either into the champs who are being played. He is in the S plus tier in terms of mid lane, but I don't think he fares very well into control mages. If he's playing into like a Kassadin or a Galio, maybe, but into like a Zir and Orianna, I think he just gets poked out too easily. So personally, I don't think he's worth picking or banning this week, so I've left him off all my lists, and we'll kind of see where it goes. I don't think we're going to see massive prevalence of Viego this week, maybe a game or two. But we'll head right into things. We're going to start in the top lane. In the top lane, things look very similar. Pretty much the same 5 champions. I've added Aatrox and Auron onto the list. We're seeing a little bit more Aatrox as more top laners draw bans. And Auron, always a solid team fighting champ. Always going to kind of be in the meta. Especially as games go longer, Auron's priority rises because of the Auron items. Now, the one top laner that I want to touch on here really quickly is Camille. I'm going to move into the jungle next, and I'll spoiler, J4 might grow in priority this week. So I think that actually puts up Camille's priority as well, simply because Jarvan goes really well with the Galio. So you can either ban the Galio away, or you can threaten to take the Galio on your own. You take Camille Galio, also a really strong combo. Gives you more options to use that ultimate. So potentially Camille goes up in value because Galio goes up in value because Jarvan goes up in value. I know that's a lot of steps, but that's really the only change in the top lane. There wasn't too much for this patch. We'll move on to the jungle. So in the jungle, this is where things get kind of crazy. Really hard to tell what's going to happen with the jungle nerfs. There's a lot of people saying, well, junglers are going to gank a lot more. We're going to have these ganking junglers because of the farming nerfs. And although I do think that is kind of true, the farming nerfs were big for champs that weren't fantastic at farming. But if a champ is good at farming, they're still going to be okay. Like Olaf, Udyr, Hecarim, all are still fine on this patch. They're still rated fairly highly. Udyr will be permabanned again, so it's not worth picking him in fantasy. Hecarim's in the less likely tier for this patch because he's drawing a lot of bans last week. And in the couple of games of Academy and Amateur, there was a tournament. There's like 10 games to go off of, and Hecarim drew quite a few bans. So I think Hecarim will be banned a lot, but he's the other farming option, which leaves Olaf. I think we'll see a lot less Olaf bans this week, which means he actually might get played a little bit more. So I'm thinking that Olaf will be the farming option for the jungle. And then in terms of ganking options, you've got Jarvan and then potentially Elise. Now, Elise doesn't really get played that much in North American Pro. I don't know, like it's been played a little bit in other regions so far. And I think her priority just went up a ton with this patch. An Elise Renekton top lane is super, super strong. And now that Talia doesn't have the same farming capability and she's basically gone, Elise shoots up in value for sure. So if you think that your jungler and the team that you're picking the jungler for is going to farm, like have a good farming jungler, Olaf, Hecarim, those are kind of the picks. If you think that they're going to switch to this kind of ganking meta, Jarvan, potentially Elise, maybe Gragas, but it's a flex pick. So in terms of fantasy, I think it's kind of hard to tell. And then the kind of king of the jungle, if you're not sure what to pick, I would pick Skarner this week. I think everyone's going to pick up Skarner. Captain Flowers will be super happy. I think Skarner is going to be huge. It was big last week, and the jungle changes don't hurt him too much. And that ability to just force your opponents to pay this like 3,000 gold tax just for having Skarner on your team can really help with some of those mid-game fights where your AD carry is at a higher break point, like has a power spike, and the other enemy carry doesn't because they had to stop him by a QSS. So if you're not sure, pick Skarner. Jarvan's going to go up a lot, and Olaf are kind of the top 3. So we'll move on to mid lane. So in the mid lane, I had Syndra up in the top before. Syndra wasn't really getting played that much, and there's not really too many changes in the mid lane. So I don't think that's going to change. I think Syndra is still a solid champ. Players might play her, but it's just not prevalent enough to warrant a fantasy pick. Azir and Orianna are still going to be kind of the top tier picks. And then the third one that I'm adding alongside that is the Rise. Now, Everfrost got a buff on this patch, and that buffs Rise overall. We were seeing Rise already, so I think he might push up in prevalence above the TF kind of thing, maybe. It's hard to tell, but they have similar styles of play, and now Rise is even a little bit stronger than he was last patch. The Tristana and Lucian are still going to show up for sure, but it's hard to tell when a team is going to pick a marksman mid instead of a control mage. So yeah, I think we'll still see a little bit of Zoe, but not a ton. It kind of depends on the team's comp. She doesn't work as well with some of the junglers that are going to, like, Jarvan, Zoe, not necessarily a ton of synergy. All right, so we'll move on to the bot lane. So in bot, things are very similar. You might be wondering, do I still have to perma pick ban Kai'Sa? And the answer is maybe, sort of. Kai'Sa did get nerfed on this patch. Not a huge amount, though. There's some early damage nerfs to her Q, but still going to be a really solid pick. Now, Senna, I think overall is the most overpowered marksman on this patch. Nothing really changed with her from the last patch, and it's not until 11.5 that we'll see Senna's nerfs come in. So Senna's still the number one pick. Probably going to get banned away a lot, but if you get a Senna, even the fasting Senna, like, she's just so strong right now. I questioned in the first few weeks whether or not Senna would be good if she's not getting any farm, but that like 3 or 4 points that she's losing is basically 2 assists. And when she heals her entire team at once, it's like, well, there's the 4 points back, right? So Kai'Sa a little bit lower, but still going to be a really strong pick. Xayah moves up in priority a tiny bit then because of that. Like, they're probably about equal, Kai'Sa and Xayah. Senna's the number one pick, but because of bans. Now you might see some Ezreal. We were starting to see Ezreal a little bit last week. I think MF goes up a little bit if you are having like Jarvan who can trap people in, and then the MF ult comes over top. MF, Jarvan, Galio, that's a huge wombo combo right there that can just win you some games. Now, Samira is definitely a do not pick. 100% do not pick Samira. She will not be played in Pro this week. The nerf of her not being able to dash to allies, it just takes her completely out of competitive. So there's no chance Samira shows up. And I have Jinx as a less likely new pick here. Jinx has been showing up quite a bit in pro solo queue, high level solo queue. And in the few academy amateur, like there's a tournament, and Jinx actually showed up quite a few games. It didn't seem like a pocket pick for an AD carry who just really likes it. Jinx is a strong pick on this patch. Whether pros will decide to play it or not is hard to tell. But I do think that, I would say that we'll probably see more Jinx than Aphelios. That's just my thoughts on this patch. I said don't pick Aphelios or Seraphine. I think they will show up. They will get played, but it's really hard to tell when. Maybe if you have like FlyQuest, they've been really liking Seraphine, but she's such a flex pick. She can play literally any role except top and jungle. So it's really hard to tell where she's going to end up. So in terms of fantasy, not a great pick. I'll move on to the bot lane here with the addition of potentially having Aphelios, Jinx, MF, and Senna as 4 immobile AD carries, 2 of which aren't really building, Gale Force. So they don't even get the dash out of it either. Tom Kench, I think, rises in priority. I think we're going to see more Tom Kench. I don't think it's going to warrant a ban because Rel is still going to be like perma-banned. I don't think it's worth picking Rel for fantasy. Just she gets banned so much, and teams that were leaving her up last week were really getting punished for it. So I think we'll see less Rel overall, even though it'll show up in the ban phase for sure. With Jarvan growing in priority, he's always been a good ganking pro jungler. Jarvan cages people in. Galio comes over top. So I think Galio will rise in priority as support, potentially in the mid lane as well. But I think, he's just a really strong support for sure. Can go help dive mid lane too, which can help open things up on the map. Alistar and Thresh, I think, are still the top 2 supports that we're going to see the most of. I hesitated to put Thresh in the top. I think he'll still get banned a lot. So I thought about maybe putting him in the less likely tier, but I think I think Alistar for sure is just a solid pick you can pick for anyone. I'm going to kind of rotate between Alistair and Tom Kench depending on the team that I'm picking for. I moved Rakan up from the do not pick phase just because Xayah grows in prominence a little bit on this patch with the Kai'Sa nerf. So maybe we'll see a bit more Rakan. I'm not sure if I would want to pick it for fantasy this week, but we'll see how it goes maybe next week. And then don't pick Pantheon. I don't think we'll see a ton of Pantheon. Maybe for Sword Art still, it's kind of a pocket pick for him. But yeah, that's it for support. So we're going to move on. I'm going to do the practice picks and bans here on one of my leagues. So I got to make the support go to A. There we go. All right, so here is my one league where I'm winning 3-0. I'm playing the other guy who's up 3-0 or who has 3 wins as well. And I really don't want to lose this week. It'd be awesome to keep that 100% win rate. So with Huni, Huni's been really strong. Oh, come on, Sleeper. Don't do this to me now. All right, well, let's go to Fudge. It's going to work. All right, well, Fudge played Gragas all 3 games. He's got a ton of Gragas games. He looks really good on it. He's been getting lots of points on it. So I'm just going to pick the Gragas for him. Huni, I'm going to pick the Gnar. Huni played a lot of Gnar last week. Nothing's changing with that. Gnar still really works well with the changes that are happening in the jungle. He can dive really well if you time it with the Fury meter and get the Mega. In terms of Closer, I think I'm going to ban the Olaf. Closer really likes playing Olaf, and 100 Thieves likes playing around this farming kind of style because Damonte can roam and help lanes out. Like that is, if they can play that way, they like to. So I'm sure we won't see 3 games of Olaf out of Closer, but I'm betting on at least 1. Xerxes here, he's been playing a lot of Lilia and Hecarim. Like that's all his last 2 weeks is Lilia and Hecarim. I don't think Lilia is going to get played a ton, so I'm not going to pick Lilia. Hecarim, I'm like not sure if Hecarim's going to actually get through the ban phase to be picked up, but I think I'm going to pick it for Xerxes this week just because he does look really good on it, and if he gets 1 good game on it, it's worth the pick. In terms of Damonte here, he's been playing a little bit of Twisted Fate, a little bit of Galio. I'm tempted to pick the Galio on this one for Damonte. Even though I kind of just he does like to roam and help out. Damonte likes, those roaming champs. So Twisted Fate, Galio, neither of them really got a nerf on this patch. But they were getting banned a lot specifically against him just because he's so good. I'm going to go with the Twisted Fate. I might come back and change that, but yeah, not sure. Insanity. Now here's the one pick that I forgot. This is your bonus pick if you watch this far in the video, is for the mid lane, Victor. I think I totally forgot to put it in, but Victor is really strong. I've been playing a little bit of it in solo queue. Super strong champion right now, especially if the Azir and Orianna get banned. And Insanity likes Victor. I know that he has played quite a bit of it in the past, so I'm going to ban the Victor. Sven likes the Ashe. Cloud9 likes the go button on the Ashe ulti. I don't love it in this case. Now Cloud9 hasn't really been playing Senna, the fasting Senna, as much. I'm really tempted to pick the Xayah here, maybe the Ezreal. Honestly, AD carry is really hard now that the Kai'Sa is not just permaban. Maybe it's just because it was so easy before, but I'm going to go with Xayah. And Tactical is another one where I just find it really hard to ban for him. Potentially Aphelios, he does really like Aphelios, has really strong games on Aphelios, average of 39 points per game with Aphelios, but I'm just going to ban the Kai'Sa. I think it'll get through, and it's a good laning champ, or it's not a good laning champ, it's a good endgame champ. Vulcan, Alistar, easy, don't even have to think about it. Alistar's so strong, Vulcan's so good at the champ. Huhi, I think I'm going to pick the Tom Kench. The Rel is just not worth it. He's probably not going to get it very much. He's been playing a lot of Tom Kench. The set is tempting for me to pick, but I think we'd probably see Leona before the set. So I'm going to go with Tom Kench. So that's my picks and bans video for this week. Make sure you subscribe and drop a like so that you can stay updated. On Monday, I'll put out a video kind of going over how the week went. And then next week, it'll be really interesting to see how close or how far off I was with all of these picks and bans. So may the fantasy odds be ever in your favor, and great luck in your fantasy leagues this week.